Hello everyone, this is Princess here, and for this video, this is sort of, I guess you could say, a part two. We're going to talk about the new LD weapon that will be appearing in the Divine World of Illusions for Ifrit, which is going to be for Sid. So let's get started. So Sid's LD weapon is called the Flare, and this grants him the skill High Wind. So it's a one hit and then distributed Wind Brave, followed by an AoE HP attack that is dealt 9 times. It has an 80% Brave potency, a 150% Stolen Brave overflow. It raises Brave based on 20% of HP damage dealt, except for the last attack. The HP damage is split, and it lowers wind resist for 6 turns on the first HP attack, and then it grants 1 stack of High Wind Takes to the Skies for 4 turns. So High Wind Takes to the Skies, it's an overhead buff that Sid's going to have on him, and when it is at 3 stacks, it will trigger Bombs Away. But this will trigger after an ally's turn, and this does not include Sid. So for Bombs Away, it raises the party's Brave based on attack, and then does a 2-hit distributed wind AoE HP attack dealt 6 times. It has a 120% Brave potency, a 120% Stolen Brave overflow. It raises party Brave based on HP damage dealt after each HP attack, and it deals split damage, lowers wind resist for 6 turns, and it consumes 2 stacks of High Wind Takes to the Sky. And keep in mind that this does not launch, so kind of think of it like Garnet's overhead buff, except instead of 4 turns, or when it's at 4 stacks, it takes 3 stacks for the follow-up to happen. Moving on to the passive, so at 1 out of 3, it raises Brave damage. 2 out of 3, High Wind Takes to the Skies is extended for 9 turns, and then 3 out of 3, you get another use of High Wind. And each time you limit break this LD, it raises Sid's attack. And just a little more about the overhead buff. So it has a 20% wind enchant. It raises attack and HP damage, and also raises Stolen Brave overflow. And then from the extension, it adds a 40% elemental weakness damage. Finally, we have Sid's High Armor, which is just his jacket, and this just lets him raise, or it raises his Brave cap damage. Okay, so now for the Lufenia Plus. So this one's going to be a little different. You are going to be fighting Ifrit, but you're also going to be fighting a Fireball that's going to be by Ifrit's side. So we'll talk more about the Fireball later, but for Ifrit here, he does absorb fire, obviously. And then for the orb requirements, orb requirements, sorry, I mumbled there. So the orb will appear, so like when Ifrit's orb gets up to 35, it disappears on Ifrit and then goes to the Fireball instead, and the count is going to be for 20 on the Fireball. So for the orb requirements, so there's +1 when you break Ifrit, which caters to Null, +2 from wind damage outside of turns, which caters to Sid, and then +3 if you let Ifrit act, which doesn't really cater to anyone in particular. So over here is the Fireball, and just like with Ifrit, it does absorb fire. So as for the orb, like I said, it appears when Ifrit's orb cancels out, and the count on the Fireball's orb is going to be by 20, and the only requirement for this one is just to let it act, and the orb goes up by 1. So the Fireball isn't too dangerous. It is constantly going to use group HP attacks, and it also like recovers HP whenever you hit it. So don't focus too much on the Fireball. Just focus on taking out Ifrit. But if you're running a rebreaker like Null, then you can use you could break the Fireball to get a free turn and then just attack Ifrit. That's what I did for this Lufenia Plus. And then for the orb attacks, so both for Ifrit and the Fireball, they're not lethal, but what the Fireball will do is it reduces Ifrit's debuffs by 4 turns, and then if the orb goes off on Ifrit, he will inflict a frame debuff on the party, which was just attack and defense. Okay, so going back to Ifrit for a bit, so about his attacks, so Ifrit will automatically use Hellfire at 89, 69, 49, 29, and then 9%. It is an AoE attack that insta-breaks the party and then delays them by 2 turns. It can also kill, so be careful. Every now and then, it will grant itself HP regen and will inflict a framed Fire Imperil debuff on the party. The HP regen is not framed though, so you can dispel it if you want to. And Scorch will be active when Ifrit has his Brave Orb up. Or sorry, his just Lufenia Orb. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. But if you remember, Scorch like reduces your Brave damage when you fought him in like the World of Illusions. But what's different about this one is that it will lower the party's HP, Max Brave, and Initial Brave, and it also locks his turn, so you can't delay him. And if you want to get rid of it, you need to have 4 debuffs on Ifrit. So with that being said, I think I've pretty much cleared everything here. So now I'm going to head to JP, and I'm going to showcase Sid's LD. So I will be right back. Alright, so we're back in JP. So I'm just going to do Brave hits with Sarah and Noel here. Alright, so here's High Wind. So here's the overhead buff. High Wind takes to the skies. And it just goes up by 2 turns. So now I'm just going to keep doing some Brave attacks here. And let's actually kill the smaller mobs first here. Alright, so now I'm going to do a Brave attack with Sid over here. So now it goes up by 3. So now when Sarah takes her turn, Bombs Away triggers, like that. So the key thing to remember is that when it's at 3 stacks, and if it's not Sid's turn, then that's when Bombs Away triggers. So, and then finally for... I didn't even read the alternatives, wow. So other characters that you can use for Ifrit's Lufenia Plus, so I know like some of the latest ones would be like Snow, Machina, I want to say Ursula too. Maybe she'll work, I'm not too sure, to be honest, I didn't use her. Zac could also work, you can have like a tank on the party. Some healers like Y'shtola and Lena can work, and then for wind damage, you can use Bartz or Fujin, if you're not going for Sid. So that pretty much covers everything for this video. Thank you very much for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.